could have imagined? And you'll tell me when we're live, right?
Yes, Chair.
Okay.
You are live.
I love the voice from yonder. You are live. All right. At 5:01, I am calling to order the Finance Committee for April 3rd. And this is a regular meeting of this committee. And if we could get a roll call, please, from our Finance Director.
Certainly, Madam Chair. Councillor Cassett.
Here.
Councillor Lindell. Councillor Rivera.
Here.
Councillor Villarreal.
Present.
Councillor Romero Worth.
I'm here.
Madam Chair, you have a quorum.
All right, terrific. Do we have changes to our agenda tonight?
No changes from staff.
Okay, any changes from the committee? And if not, is there a motion? We have a motion and a second to approve the agenda for tonight. All those in favor, aye. Anybody opposed? That motion passes. We are on to approval of the consent agenda. I understand there are a number of items that have been pulled. Director Oster, do you want to just go through those maybe? And we'll see if they reflect correctly what the committee is interested in.
Certainly, Madam Chair. Certainly, I have item B as in boy, D as in dog, F as in Frank, M as in Mary, Q as in Q,
Queen.
Q, and R as in rain.
Okay, are there other items the committee is interested in that weren't listed just now? Hopefully not, because the staff that we have tonight reflects those items, but if not, I'm going to stand in place for a moment. Councilwoman, you look like you're double checking. Okay, we'll stand in place for a second. Okay, you're good. Is there a motion?
Move for approval is amended.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda as amended. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? That motion passes as well. Okay, we have two presentations tonight. The first one is a benefits presentation. And Director Oster, do we have people in the chamber or are we on Zoom or how's that work? I'm just going to turn it over to you. And I believe we have our Human Resources Director Bernadette Salazar here. And Alvin, all right.
Good evening, Madam Chair. We are waiting for our Aon representative. He said he's about 3 minutes away.
Okay, so maybe what we should do is go to the audit, but we'll have to amend the agenda, I think.
So moved. Second.
A motion and a second to hear the audit update before the benefits presentation. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? That motion passes. So we'll go to you, Director Oster, for the audit update for FY21.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee. I have several updates for you this evening. I wanted to report that the city filed its continuing disclosure with EMMA, which is the website that's used by the Securities Rulemaking Board for annual disclosure related to the bonds. That was filed timely on Friday, 3/31. We are continuing our conversations with S&P Global regarding next steps following their credit watch. And we had a productive meeting with them last week on Thursday. On Friday, the 31st, I submitted an updated FY21 draft of the financial statements unaudited, as well as a preliminary draft of FY22 financial statements for selected funds. For the bond rating, they're concerned primarily with the general fund, the water fund, and the wastewater fund, because those are the funds that have the debt. With regard to the audit itself, we are about 6 months in at this point. We had our entrance conference on October 6th. So we're just about at the 6-month mark. And I was thinking about, a normal trajectory, normal timeline for an audit. The typical timeline starts in July and goes through mid-December. So that's normal. Best case scenario, you would be looking at around 6 months. In our case, we've had some things that we've been working through. Just to recap a bit on our timeline, around this time last year, about a year ago, we had our previous auditor withdraw. We then did a new procurement. We did a new RFP. We awarded a contract to a new audit firm in early September, and we held our entrance conference, as I mentioned, in October. So we're just about 6 months in, and the audits are moving forward. We expect to have auditors from Carr Riggs Ingram and contractors from Clifton Larson Allen on site this month in April to perform substantive test work, and they're sending us samples. One of the reasons they'll be coming on site in April is to review documents that are in hard copy. For example, our payroll files are maintained in hard copy. So they'll be coming on site to make it easier for them to review that documentation. Let's see. So timeline wise, we're on track to what I would expect in a normal audit process. We're working through things as quickly as we can, looking for opportunities for additional efficiencies. We do have some new folks coming on with Carr Riggs Ingram. That's the external audit team this month, which will be great. That'll be helpful in terms of carrying our momentum forward and continuing work and trying to complete FY21 as quickly as we can. I did want to share a couple of updates about the FY24 budget. During my report today, I just a few moments ago sent you out the final schedule for the budget hearings. So that should be in your email. And we did our best to address conflicts and make sure that it works for everybody. We will be preparing the agendas this week, and we will have the budget books available on Wednesday 4/5. For those folks that are on the Quality of Life Committee, I thought I could hand out the budget books at Quality of Life. And for the rest of the council, I can leave the budget book in your office if that works. All right, great. Thank you, Madam Chair. That's my update for tonight, and I'd be happy to stand for any questions.
So April's going to be not very busy for you. On-site auditors and on-site consultants and budget hearings, all coming together at in the same month.
That's correct, Madam Chair. I think for all of us, the budget hearings will consume a lot of time.
Yeah, well, I knew that, but I didn't know you were going to have on-site visitors too. Questions from the committee? Okay. I guess there are none. So we will move on. I see our consultant has now joined us, so we can go back to the benefits presentation, and we'll take that up if you're ready.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. This presentation is our regularly scheduled update on our self-insured benefits plan, and it will also include some information about our renewal or FY24. And so I will turn it over to Todd from Aon right now.
Good evening, everyone. I will go through the experience year to date pretty quickly. You'll see there's claims experience through February of 2023. Year to date, there's roughly a $1.2 million surplus, but I'll caveat that if you turn to the page with monthly claims and revenue, you will see in July and December, there were 3 paycheck months. So in column D, you will see revenue for those months is about 2.4 million. For the other months, 1.6. So we expect to see deficits for the remaining 4 months of the fiscal year and probably end up the fiscal year close to break even. The next page shows your high cost claimants, of which there have been none that have exceeded the $250,000 stop loss level. That's the reason for the surplus so far. Year to date, there are a couple approaching that level, and we expect them to break through that level shortly. For comparison purposes, on the next page, you'll see the last 3 years of high cost claimants, which were a little above 2, 3, and 4 million. This year has been a really good year in terms of high cost claimants, which will typically drive your experience from year to year. On the following page, just wanted to give some history of what has happened to the medical plan. Starting from the bottom up, you can see for 3 fiscal years, there was no change to rates. This current fiscal year, we increased rates by 18.5%, beginning July 1st of 2022. Fire made the decision to accept the entire 18.5% increase last year. All other entities within the city increased rates last year by 12% with an agreed upon minimum increase of 6.5% this year. And that will become important on the next couple of pages. There are 2 renewal options for fiscal year 2024. The minimum agreed upon renewal plus 0.5%, minimum agreed upon renewal with benefit changes to get to no change for any entities within the city. As you recall, the minimum increase for non-fire is 6.5%. So we'll see that on the next page. The total budget increase of 0.5% is $127,000, split between the city paying about $97,000 of that. The employees would pick up the remaining $30,000. All of the amounts you'll see on the following pages are based on 1,300 enrolled employees in FY 2024. And some good news, dental is appropriately funded and no change is needed to that funding. On the following page, you will see the 2 options. Option 1, the minimum agreed upon plus 0.5%. So that's 0.5% for fire, 7% for all others. And you'll see in the bottom right-hand corner of that first box, the increase of about $127,000. The second option presented was the minimum agreed upon increase. So we would I'm on page 11. I'm not sure if it's the same page for you all.
Madam Chair and members of the committee, in the online packet, it's page 10.
So second box shows no increase for fire, 6.5% for others. And we would offset that 0.5% increase that we're not implementing by making benefit changes. The following page shows the current benefits in columns A and B. Down below in rows 16 A through D and 17 A through D, you will see the biweekly contributions for both fire and other. And then you will also see at the bottom of the page, the City of Santa Fe biweekly contributions. So for the all other entity, the increase would amount to anywhere from about $6.50 for employee only to about $16 for an employee plus family. Minimal increases across the board with fire, as again, they accepted the entire 18.5% increase this year. So that 0.5% is a minimal amount overall for all tiers. The last 3 pages are just benchmarking. I think we're all aware, I sound like a broken record, the City of Santa Fe's benefits are much richer and beneficial to the employees than other public entities in the state of New Mexico and pretty much nationwide for that matter.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, I'd also like to let you know that we have been meeting with the Benefits Advisory Committee pursuant to the resolution. And our last meeting we had with them, we went over these numbers. And in speaking with them, they're all very interested in maintaining our plan design as it is today. So they are in agreement with the 0.5% increase for fire, and then the 7% increase for AFSCME and the remaining city employees. So we've had that discussion. They're not really interested in looking at plan design changes for this year. So they were really interested in the columns A and B on those charts.
Okay, and is that the conclusion of what you have for us tonight?
Madam Chair, yes, that concludes the presentation and I stand for any questions.
Okay, terrific. Questions from the committee? Doesn't look like there are questions. Doesn't look like there are a bunch of happy faces either, but you know, healthcare costs continue to rise. Okay, I don't see any questions. Thank you. Appreciate the presentation and just kind of seeing where we are and particularly in advance of the budget hearings. So thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, with that, we will move on to our consent items. And the first item that was pulled off of our consent calendar is a request for approval of a purchase contract with Motorola to purchase P25 flashing programming for public safety radio system to flash existing city radios in preparation to transition to the state of New Mexico trunked radio system in the amount of $381,701.67. We have our ITT director, Manuel Gonzalez, and I'm not sure who pulled this. Counselor Lindell, you pulled this, and I'll just turn it over to you. I didn't know if you want a presentation or you want to ask questions, but I'll let you take it.
Thank you, Chair. Did we recently buy new radios?
Madam Chair, Councilor Lindell, we bought 60 radios in 2021. What this is doing, it's programming over 120 radios to move over to the state system. So this is a software application.
What's the lifespan of the radio?
The lifespan of a radio, I'd imagine 10 years. I'd have to get that information back to you.
That long?
Yes.
Okay. I just wondered, because we spent pretty sizable money on that. I just wondered if we would be, I don't know how old the other 60 radios are that we're upgrading. I mean, are some of those at the end of their lifespan?
So the radios we purchased were to get them in compliance with the radios we already had. So we already had that model of radio in service. These were older models that we had to purchase. So we would be on the same model in 2021. What we're purchasing now is a patch. It's a programming to install on the radios so we can move over to the state system.
I'm always a little bit concerned about patching things up. Is this I mean, this is software for 120 radios?
Madam Chair, Councilor Liddell, yes.
So we're better off doing a patch like this than trying to upgrade to totally new radios.
This patch is required, this software flash is required to move to the state system. This is a state requirement.
So even if we had new radios, they wouldn't have this.
And we have, these radios are the latest radios out there, Councilman Lindell.
Okay. I guess we don't have much choice then, do we?
No, we don't. In order to move the state system, we have to install the flash.
And was this money budgeted or where's it coming from?
This money is coming from the CIP fund for the public safety radio system.
Is that where the CIP fund? Is that where we typically fund these from?
The CIP fund was established, I believe, in 2017 for the P25 radio project. There's money left over from that original project.
All right, Chair, that's all I've got.
Okay, so just a quick question. So when we say patchwork, sometimes I think it has a negative connotation, right? That maybe we're kind of, I don't know, putting duct tape on something. But what you just said, we have the latest radios. The software has to be updated so it can talk to the state system. So we're not, in essence, patchworking stuff together in order to make it functional. We're doing the necessary upgrades to make the systems talk to each other.
Madam Chair, that's correct. That's like you having your cell phone and you're moving from Verizon to T-Mobile. There's a service patch or an upgrade of the software in order to make that transition. That's what we're doing.
Okay. Other questions from the committee? Is there a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve this item. Remind me, Director Oster, do I need to do a roll call on these? I think I do, right?
Yes, Madam Chair. Yes. Counselor Cassett,
Yes, came out.
Counselor Lindell,
Yes.
Counselor Rivera.
Yes.
Thank you.
Counselor Villarreal,
Yes.
Counselor Romero Worth.
Yes,
Motion passes.
thank you. And thank you, Director Gonzalez, for being here. All right, we will move on to item D, request for approval of a construction contract in the total amount of $2,162,102.71, including NMGRT for the construction of S-100-660 Kenyatta Rincon Trail with HO Construction. And we have our fearless leader, Capital Projects Manager, Romela Glorioso Mas. Your hyphenated name is almost as, you can trip over it like you can trip over mine. All right, I will let's see, Councilor Lindell, did you pull this?
Yes.
Okay. So I'll let Councilor Lindell take it from here. Welcome.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for being here. What's the funding source for this?
There are two funding sources. One is a federal funding program called Transportation Alternative Program and road impact fees.
And what?
Road impact fees. When a developer develops housing, they have to pay impact fees for roads, trails, parks, fire, and that is the source of this funding.
Can you say how much of this is coming out of road impact fees?
Out of 1,775,000, 1,137,000 is coming from road impact fees. But that is just 40% of what is we reserved $2.5 million for this project from road impact fees. So we are just getting 40% of that reserve funding.
So $1 million of it is coming from road impact fees?
Madam Chair, Councilor Lindell, yes.
What? So what else could we have? So we made that a priority, this project a priority with our road impact fees. How long ago did we do that?
The bicycle master plan was done in 2012. So it was prioritized in 2012. It's priority A in the bicycle master plan.
What other kinds of projects are funded by road impact fees?
We used, Madam Chair, Councilor Lindell, we use road impact fees as a stopgap. So if the funding is not enough, like for this project, we use road impact fees. So for a number of our projects, we use road impact fees, for example, for designing of projects like or for local match, because all funding applications, we need to have local match. It ranges from 5% to 25%. So all our projects with funding, we use road impact fees. For trail projects, we have, as of now, we're working on 6 trail projects, 5 of which have some road impact fees funding. So it ranges from 5% to 10% of the funding that we receive from federal government or from state government. So those 6 trail projects are Acequia Trail, El Camino Real Academy Trail, Cañada Rincon Trail, Rail Trail Intersection Improvements Project, the St. Michael's Rail Trail Underpass Project, and I'm missing one.
That's all right. I think you did pretty good. In fact, I think you did excellent reeling off the ones that you did. So road impact fees, are there projects that can they be used in capital improvement projects?
Madam Chair, Councilor Lindell, yes, and I have not enumerated the roadway projects that we use road impact fees, but yes, we use road impact fees for these trails because we use it as transportation. If the trail is used for recreation, the funding comes out from parks and trails impact fees.
Parks and trails impact fees. Those are separate from road impact fees?
Madam Chair, Councilor Lindell, yes, because those trails are used for recreation and part of a regional trail system.
So it sounds like almost all of our road impact fees and these other recreation trail fees, they all have to do with transportation.
Madam Chair, Councilor Lindell, not all, because some trails are part of park system, and they are not used so much for transportation, like for commuting from home to work, unlike this trail.
Do we have any of these types of fees that are used for anything other than trails?
Madam Chair, Councilor Lindell, yes. I believe like Las Soleras trails, they use parks and trails impact fees, not road impact fees.
I'm trying to get to, can these fees be used for other kinds of capital improvement projects?
Madam Chair, Councilor Lindell, impact fees are used only.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Madam Chair, Councilor Lindell. So as Ramela was explaining, whenever there's development in the city, and Jason, Director of Land Use is here, The developer pays into the impact fees, and there's impact fees for fire, impact fees for police, roadways, and parks and trails. And so, and it is really for capital projects in those areas. And there's a whole adopted document that was approved by governing body probably just after I got here 5 years ago that actually lists the types of things you can spend those impact fees on, because what the developers are supposed to be doing is they're paying back the city for the impacts on the infrastructure in those areas where they're developing. And they're also paying the city to help us continue to improve the infrastructure around those developments for quality of life, safety, recreation, those kinds of things. So they are used for capital projects. Maybe Jason can clarify that, but the document does specify what you can use it for. We only use it for capital projects for roads and trails and parks. And as Ramella mentioned, it's usually about 90% federal state funding and 10% funding from impact fees. And that's how we use it to keep our projects going.
So can these fees be used for capital improvements in parks?
They can, in fact, it's specified in the plan which parks and which types of improvements. Do you want to, can you?
Madam Chair, councilors, I apologize. I was actually working on a different project. I wasn't listening. Yeah, I can clarify anything you'd like to ask me about impact fees.
And
I'm trying to find out if these funds can be used in parks for capital improvement projects.
Yes,
Any capital improvement project.
The plan actually is thoughtful about where you invest the money to make it relevant to the developer's impact fees. So there's a pre-approved plan of projects. And just so you know, Swan Park is getting $1 million investment from impact fees right now as part of its Swan Park Phase 2. Yeah, it's the access.
Madam Chair, Councilor Lindell, if you'd like to look at the impact fee capital improvements plan that was done a couple of years ago, that lays everything out, and I'm happy to forward that to you if you don't have it.
That would be terrific.
Okay.
yeah, if you could get that to the committee, that would be helpful.
Because spending $1 million on this trail would not be one of my priorities. And I don't know how it became the priority for the monies, because I'm sure we have a ton of other projects vying for this money.
Madam Chair, Councilor Lindell, if that was a question, as Ramella said, the pedestrian master plan dictates really important pedestrian and bicycle improvements for bicycle transportation in our city. And it is actually a really big deal. Youth that don't drive bicycle, we have a lot of young families moving here that would prefer to bicycle. It's a really important part of our sustainability, safety, and quality of life here in the community. So having a good bicycle network is actually really important. Also, what happens is a lot of these federal and state funding opportunities target trails and transportation networks that are multimodal. And so we're leveraging to the best of our, more than we've ever leveraged before, this federal and state funding. And then that does require us to use our funds as a match to make up the difference. And in fact, this particular project came in higher during bid than was expected, as all things will right now. And the impact fees allowed us to really finish the project, get it done for the community.
Yeah, I would like to see that list, and maybe, I don't know when it was passed, but as you said, the bicycle master plan was in 2011 or 2012. So that's over 10 years old. It may be time for us to take another look at that. That's all I have, Chair.
Other questions from the committee? Councilwoman Villarreal.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just to follow up, so Cañada Rincon Trail was approved actually, I think it was design, the design piece, like 2018, 2017, because I remember that we actually had to do an approval of that. So it's been in process, and I think it's an important linkage in that area. And I'm just curious, why did we have a delay for some reason? Because I just remember this moving forward 2017, 18.
I apologize, Councilor Villarreal. If you could just hold that for 1 second, I wanted to address that previous question. Madam Chair, Councilor Lindell, I'm happy to have Eric Ani look into the bicycle master plan and make sure that you are getting the most current information on that. Apologize. Check that.
In addition to the document that you mentioned.
Correct.
So the design started in 2015, so it was prioritized in 2012 bicycle master plan. The bicycle master plan was updated in 2019 and it's still in the list, but I think it's still priority A, phase A of the plan. So it remains a priority. With regards to the delay, so the design started in 2015. And the concept, and with this design, you have to find funding. So the 100% construction plan was completed in 2019. But we need to apply for construction funding, and we obtained construction funding in 2021. And part of that funding agreement is for NMDOT to review the construction plans. And so it took time, and we had to acquire right of way, which also took maybe a year to acquire. So these are the delays. And the construction plans was approved by NMDOT in August of 2022. We bid the project in November of 2022. There were no bidders. There were no responsive bidders. And in January, there was one bidder, which is luckily for us, a responsive bidder.
Thank you for the timeline. I do remember there were community outreach meetings. They had neighborhood meetings in this. So there has been a lot of work to this point. And I think the funding source is always kind of dependent on what's happening. Is there, I couldn't find in the contract, is there a warranty time period for the completion? Well, once the trail is complete, is there a warranty time period after that?
Madam Chair, Councilor Villarreal, Councilwoman Villarreal, yes, it's 2 years.
Okay. Thank you. That's all I have, Madam Chair. Thank you. Thank you, Romella.
Other questions from the committee? Is there a motion? Oh, sorry, Councilor Rivera.
Thank you. I thought Councilwoman Cassett had some questions.
Oops, sorry, guys.
All right. Can you explain to me again why we're using road improvement impact fees instead of park fees?
Madam Chair, Councilor Rivera, yes, because this is a trail that will be used for transportation, unlike a trail that is used for recreation. So parks and trails impact fees, those projects that qualify for that kind of impact fee or funding is only used for parks. So if, for example, Swan Park, this is just an example. If the trail will just be used for park users and is not connected to any roadway or any trail, that we can use parks and trails impact fees. But if it is connected to a roadway and it's used mainly as a transportation system, then we will use road and trails impact fees. And that is how it was, the language in the resolution and the state bill is, code is that trails, roadways, and trails for transportation use.
Madam Chair, Councilor Rivera, I'd like to add to that. We're actually very strategic about these funds. There's not a huge amount of them, but they're absolutely critical for this gap funding against leveraged federal and state funding. And so we really do try to let parks keep their parks money and not use it on a whole bunch of trails, right? We want our parks. That's where people want the parks money to go, is in the parks. And so only, like Romella said, only trails that are really related to a park get paid by the park money. The road impact fee dollars are a little more than the parks impact fee dollars. Just the percentage is higher, so you get more money there and there's more to play with. And so we really do try to leave parks and open space, that those funds for improvements to parks.
And I know you said this, I know it's been the case for many years, is that fees collected in the area go to impact fees within that area. So what kind of building has been going on within this area that allows for that much?
Madam Chair, Councilor Rivera, it's actually not that direct. The way that we do it is you adopt the IFCIP, the infrastructure, the impact fee capital improvement plan. It's listed on the web, and that has projects listed in it. So it has the code from the state, the code from the city that says what you can spend this money on and must spend this money on. And then it lists projects that we've all decided are eligible under those two code guidelines.
So it used to be that impact fees collected within the area had to be used within that area and we had a committee that if you were going to deviate from that plan would approve that decision prior to coming to any committee or the governing body. Do we still have that committee, Jason?
Madam Chair, Councilor Rivera. So we still do have the CIAC committee who approves these projects. But Regina's correct that, you know, the IFCIP does dictate, you know, it lays out the program for the use of the impact fees. And yes, the code does say that there's supposed to be a quote unquote a rational nexus between the use of the impact fees and the developments in the vicinity. That has, to my knowledge, not been followed in the last, you know, at least 3.5 years, probably longer.
And who's on the capital improvement advisory committee, and did they see this project and approve it?
Okay.
Madam Chair, Councilor Rivera, our old land use director is the chair, Matt O'Reilly is the chair of and then there's some other names that you would recognize, but we haven't seen them in a while. They've actually approved the updates to the IFCIP, which put all the projects that you see in front of you these last couple of months into the plan. So that was their work.
Well, Jason, will you look into that committee? I know prior to COVID, I think every counselor had a person that they could name to the committee. And I don't, it used to be, I think, every year or 2 years, but I haven't heard anything about who's representing District 3 or who's on that committee.
Right. Madam Chair, Councilor Rivera, yes, I will. You know, that committee doesn't meet very often. We would like to meet quarterly, but for various reasons in the last few years, it's just been challenging, but we are planning a meeting soon, so we can circle back to that and look at appointments, you know, who needs to be updated. But I believe you're correct that those are related directly to council districts.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it.
I think actually we were asked about that fairly recently, because I know who serves for District 2. And I feel like maybe it's been a year or two. I don't know. Time passes faster than, but I think we have actually appointed people to that. And it is done by district, and we have done it kind of recently.
Madam Chair, there definitely are appointees now. But again, that committee is they convene very infrequently.
Right.
Yeah.
And especially with COVID and yeah. Okay. I think Councilor Cassett over here has questions.
If I can get them out. Hi. Oh, gosh, that's not coming. Correct me if I'm wrong, but we only have, 7 years to spend those impact fees? Isn't that one of the pieces of this that has to come into consideration?
Yeah, Madam Chair, Councilor Cassett, yes, that's true. We must spend the money. It's very important.
Okay.
Time statutes on it.
Okay. I don't know why I can't say normal words. Okay, that was just my one question, because I know that that's one of the pieces of as we need to be getting these dollars out, that there was actually an incident where we were not getting the dollars out fast enough. So we do need to make sure that they are spent. And then I also understand that because of what we apply for NMDOT, that also kind of limits it, because don't the DOT grants, they have very specific things. I might be confusing things through the MPO, but I know they have specific grants and it has to go to these very specific topics. And that's also what is coming into play in terms of the decision as to where these go.
Madam Chair, Councillor Cassett, yes, absolutely correct.
Okay.
So this trail is coming out of Transportation Alternative Program. They only fund trails.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Yes, Councilor Rivera.
Thank you. Just one last question. I know when we approved the apartments on South Meadows, those impact fees were specifically assigned to Agua Fria South Meadows intersection improvements. I assume that's all been funded, but just want to make sure.
Madam Chair, Councillor Rivera, so Agua Fria South Meadows is a qualified project to receive impact fees. However, we're successful in finding the full funding for construction. So only 5% of construction costs is coming from road impact fees. 95% is federal.
Great. Thank you.
Other questions from the committee? This has been a very interesting deep dive. Who knew that pulling this item off would provide so much information? Do we have a motion?
Move for approval.
Second.
A motion and a second to approve this item. We need a roll call, I believe. Councilor Cassett, those cough drops are very fragrant, even with this
Are.
mask on.
Those are good ones.
Councillor Cassett,
Yes.
Hey, you got
Councillor Lindell. Councillor Villarreal,
Yes.
Councillor Rivera,
Yes.
Councillor Romero Worth.
yes.
Motion passes.
All right. Thank you to everybody who was here to educate us on that. Very interesting. All right. Item F, request for approval of amendment number 1 to item number 22-0348 to amend the scope of services for navigation services in the total amount of $286,500. We have Krista Hernandez with Youth and Family Service Program Manager, and we have our Julie. Our Julie.
Very favorite.
Director Sanchez?
Yeah. So, well, I was sitting there thinking like, are you a director? I don't even know. And nobody gave me a cheat sheet. So, anyway, Director Sanchez, my bad. I don't know. Did you pull this as well, Councilor Lindell? You're on a roll. All right, Councilor Lindell.
I'm just getting started. So on this item. Got it. So this looks like, talk to us about the reallocation of these funds and why this needs to happen.
Absolutely. Thank you, Madam Chair, Councilor Lindell. Per St. Elizabeth Shelter and some of the challenges that they have faced due to the pandemic, they are requesting a reallocation of their safety net and navigation funding to increase safety net funds, decrease navigation funding within their contract, and to increase their wellness fund that they have received through their contract, because they have 42 employees. Oh, I'm sorry,
I didn't hear the first part. Decrease what?
Decrease the amount of funding allocated for navigation services and increase the amount of funding related to safety net services.
Okay. So decreasing navigation funding, but increasing
the safety net services.
The wellness service.
Oh, and yes, the wellness amount that they receive. They have 42 staff who provide direct services to individuals. And so within their contracted amount, it was not sufficient enough to provide wellness services to 42 individuals.
Okay, they currently have wellness services. I think it said in here $1,000 per employee. and they want to increase it to 2,250 per employee.
Madam Chair, Counselor Lindell, it's not per person, it's for the organization as a whole. So the $1,000 would go to serve, or to provide employee wellness services for 42 individuals. So they're requesting an increase to 2,500 so that they can serve all 42 individuals who provide these direct services.
Okay, my memo says 2,250.
I apologize. Madam Chair, Counselor Lindell, yes, 2,250.
Is that correct?
Yes, my computer is frozen right now.
That's
but
okay.
What's in the memo is correct.
Okay. So are we talking about a total increase in the wellness amount to 2,250 or 2,250 per employee?
Madam Chair, Counselor Lindell, it would be 2,250 as a whole for the organization per year. So they have a 3-year contract. That would be the total amount for each year.
$2,250 to be divided amongst 42 employees.
Correct.
That seems like a nonsensical amount of money. Like, how much, I mean, that's very, very, very little per employee. Right?
Correct. Counselor, Madam Chair, Counselor Lindell, that is the request of the agency, was to stay within their contracted amount, to increase that amount in order to serve. They do have their own, I believe they have their own wellness service that they do offer to employees. This would supplement what they offer right now to support those individuals.
Well, I misunderstood this memo. I thought that it was 2,250. They were requesting 2,250 per employee.
Madam Chair, Counselor Lindell, it's actually 2,250 for all 42 staff. This is
So about $50 a person.
Madam Chair, Counselor Lindell, that's correct.
I don't have any other questions. Oh, I do, sorry.
Go ahead.
Can I continue?
Sure. You're on a roll.
I think that, I don't have any more questions about the specifics of this. However, I do think that in the future, we need to take a look at this and have a definition in the contract of what wellness means. The way that it came to me in asking and getting an email, it needs to be professionalized. It needs to have some parameters on it. This is an insignificant amount of money to quibble over. However, contractually, we need to have a much clearer contract in the future. The term employee wellness is absolutely wishy-washy and no one really knows what it means. So let's clean that up in the future, okay? Thank you.
Okay, other questions from the committee? Is there a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve this item. If we could get a roll call, please.
Counselor Cassett,
Yes.
Counselor Lindell,
Yes.
Counselor Rivera, Counselor Villarreal,
Yes.
Counselor Romero Worth.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. We're on to item M, request for approval of professional services agreement with Safe Built LLC for third-party plan review, also known as TPPR services in the amount of $1,200,000. We have our Assistant Land Use Director, Thomas Graham, with us. And did you pull this as well? Who pulled this? Councilwoman Villarreal. Wahoo.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. Good to see this is moving forward with the third-party plan review services with Safe Built. And I was wondering if you could just maybe just give us a explanation of how it integrates with you all and the plan reviews that we are already doing and how that works together. And then also just understanding about how the services are billed, a little bit more details on that.
Madam Chair, Councilwoman Villarreal, thank you for the question. Basically, these are going to be plan review services that we would normally do ourselves, but we're offering the expedited plan review services that are on the fee that was approved by the governing body back in 2020, and it was effective January 1st, 2021. So what these will do is, this is a pilot program for us that we're trying to do our best to increase the efficiency of our land use department. And we're starting off with new construction of sorry, I hear an echo. New construction of commercial, multifamily buildings, and also residential. So we're limited to the new construction to start, but hopefully as things progress and develop, it's proving to be a good program. We'll be able to expand the different types of reviews that they'll be able to do at that time. And
The other piece was about how it's billed.
Madam Chair, Councilwoman Villarreal, the billing is coming straight from the applicants. They're paying what they would normally pay in plan review fees, plus a 20% markup on top of that. So all of the fees for the Safe Built consultant will be coming from the applicants. So as they're, and then I might add that these amounts are going to be higher than the actual plan review fees plus 20%. So there will always be more in the account that we're depositing these funds in than there are in the account that pays these out of the professional services.
Okay. And then I guess I'm curious about, I think we had talked about this before, but if there was a tiered cost, so it depends on what is needed or involved for the review. Is it just a flat 20% increase, or it depends on the project or what's actually being reviewed, or can you elaborate?
Madam Chair, Councilwoman Villarreal, yes, it does. The fees are set by the construction valuation. So basically that will determine how much a project costs, but the reviews are not going to be the end all beat all where everything can be done by Safe Built. There are some reviews that will still require internal review, like public utilities, water, sewer, solid waste, as well as zoning, historic, and fire at this time. So some of these are possibilities that down the road we could actually include in that program, but at this time we would still have to send it out to those within our internal review process.
Okay. And is the applicant, do they get to decide if they want to opt in to the service? And if they don't, then do they follow the same track that they normally would? And does that potentially mean it will take longer?
Madam Chair, Councilwoman Villarreal. Yes, that is completely dependent on the applicant to decide to go into this program. And they are responsible for paying the 20% above the standard fees. And yes, that would all be dependent on their choice. And also, if they do not opt into this plan, then it would go through the normal review process, which could depending on their submittal, it will definitely take.
I guess I'm thinking about the smaller projects that is by a smaller company, something more not super complex, I guess. And it's a small, smaller developer wanting to go through the process. And I guess I see this as it does support you all in freeing up staff to be able to do more. So would that mean then a small kind of development project that decides obviously can't afford that, they may not be able to afford the 20% increase. If they go through the route of just working with staff, does that free up you all then to maybe make that easier for them? That actually increases efficiency as well.
Madam Chair, Councilwoman Villarreal, yes, that is absolutely correct. And that is the intention of this whole program, is to provide supplement to our staff so that they can free up and speed up on other reviews that come across their desk.
Right. Yeah.
So they'll be able to attend to the business person who might in essence wait longer without this program than with it.
Right. Yeah, that's what I'm hoping, that it's not a cost burden for folks that are kind of small shop developments that are, not too complex, that we are able to get them through the process a lot easier. So that's what my hope is. And I hope that it works out that way for you all. And then the other question I had was that 20% increase, or that 20%, what is it? Markup? I don't know what you call it. Does that cover the cost for the working with this private entity?
Madam Chair, Councilwoman Villarreal, yes, it does. It covers the administrative costs of working with them. And to address your earlier statement, that is also our intent and hope, that this does provide great use of freeing up staff members and create a more efficient and useful land use department that caters to the needs of our community.
Yes, thank you. That's all I have. Thank you, and wish you all the best of luck with this pilot. I think all of us are hoping that it'll work well for the industry and for our community. Thank you.
Other questions from the committee? Councilor Cassett.
Thank you. There it is. Okay. Are there any vacancies in this in the plan review team right now?
Madam Chair, Councilor Cassett, yes, there are currently vacancies, and one of those is being a plan reviewer too. So this will supplement our staffing needs as well. But like I was saying before, it's not the end all beat all. We still need to find these basically unicorns that are hard to come by. So that is our intent.
Madam Chair, Councilor Cassett, I'd just like to add that, this service is discretionary, so we can't count on it to, replace a plan reviewer. That's not what's happening.
That was actually what I wanted to make sure of, that we were still going to be hiring the planner.
Right. This augments staff's capacity, but it does not replace our need for plan reviewers.
Wonderful. I'm so sorry. Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Okay. Other questions from the committee? I had a couple. And I think Counselor Cassett got to one of them, which is, so the cost of having this third-party reviewer do the work that internal staff would normally have done will be covered by the 20% markup or the application fee plus the 20% markup?
Madam Chair, the cost that we're paying the third-party plan reviewer is actually covered by just the plan review fees itself. The 20% markup is for administrative fees and things like that.
Okay, and I guess what I'm concerned about, though, is that what is the budget hit then to the land use department if, I mean, how do you, is this, are we just going to start moving to doing this externally rather than internally? Because we won't have the money to grow or hire the internal people to do this work because it'll all be going outside. And obviously the industry representatives are for this because it's worth it to them to have the expedited review. They're willing to pay 20% above what they normally would. But I'm just curious, like how does that mean long-term we're probably moving? How do you protect the integrity of the staffing inside at the same time you're adding staffing outside?
Madam Chair, it doesn't mean that at all.
Okay.
This is really a service that we're providing to those who want to pay a little bit extra to get it. And what it's doing right now, we're getting almost $6 million a year in permit fees, roughly on an average. And we're basically allocating $300,000 for this external. And the fees that will come in will be on top of the fees that are going out. So there's more coming in than there is going out. So it's not to replace, as Director Klug said, it's not to replace any of our staff. We're still going to actively search for our staff members to build up our staff so that we can continue to and even get better at providing service to our community.
Yeah, it might be interesting to, I'm just looking really quickly at your memo. It might be interesting to give that context in the memo so that it's clear what the intention is here. I don't know, or maybe just telling this committee is useful, but.
Madam Chair, I'm not exactly sure what you mean, the context.
Well, that you're taking in 6 million in permit fees and you're only using 300,000 to do this pilot. So you are, we aren't going to pivot to having external third-party people do the work that has traditionally been done in-house. Well, and it's not going to hurt our ability to continue to hire those positions, to Councillor Cassett's point, so that we still maintain that expertise in-house.
Madam Chair, understood. I think that's a good idea. Do I need to change this going forward? Or?
I don't know. It's an offline conversation, but I think it's an important contextual piece for everybody understanding what we're doing here. Okay, that's all I have. Any other questions? Is there a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
Can we get a roll call, Director Oster?
Certainly, Madam Chair. Counselor Cassett,
Yes.
Counselor Lindell, Counselor Rivera,
Yes.
Counselor Villarreal,
Yes.
Counselor Merworth.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. All right, two more items. Item Q, request for approval granting a utility access easement to NTS Communications LLC, doing business as Vexus Fiber LLC, to construct a fiber optic network hub on a portion of the city's Franklin E. Miles Park. Vexus to pay a one-time fee of $20,000. We have Terry Lease, our Asset Development Manager. And Counselor Cassidy, I think you pulled this.
Sure did. Let's see if I can communicate. So I have been really excited about this project and the expansion, of oh God, I can't even talk today. Of Vexus Fiber coming in and with being able to expand access to the internet. We know that that's really crucial for a lot of businesses and for the digital divide. However, I am really concerned about a park, Franklin Miles Park in District 4, having a utility box essentially is what I'm understanding it to be on a portion of the park. I understand that it's not a portion that is utilized, but it still does change the aesthetic of the park and the feeling of the park. And especially in District 4, which is one of the densest areas of the city. And that access to open space is not something that we have privately in a lot of these neighborhoods. And so really preserving that access to open space and to that visual view of being able to have that public open space is really important. I am curious what other properties were assessed for the potential placement of this? Why was Franklin Miles chosen? And is there another viable option?
Excuse me. Madam Chair, Councilor Cassett, thank you. Yes. We considered two other locations, city-owned locations, and multiple non-city locations. I'll address the city locations we looked at. I've invited Kevin Falk from Vexus Fiber. He's the Vice President of Operations for Vexus Fiber, and he can address the other non-city sites that were looked at. So we first came to actually in initial discussions with Vexus Fiber, actually back in mid 2021, there was initial discussions about the hub and where it would be, and centrally located was very important because it's going to be serving the entire city. And even before the franchise, I think, was approved, or during that approval process, I know there was activity going on with Vexus Fiber looking at locations. When they finally did send the letter in March of 22, I believe, to the city asking about, Franklin Miles Park, a couple months prior to that, we had looked at Midtown location for a possible site. That Midtown location, we decided to not go that direction just because of all the changes that's going to be happening out there with buildings being raised and new constructions and so on. Decided that was probably not an ideal location. We looked at the Public Works office and yard on Siringo Road also. And there was a lot of back and forth with Public Works, but there's some issues there with just activity in and out and access. And then so that one was put aside as well. And then discussions with Public Works and the Parks Director and looking at a couple locations on Franklin Miles Park. That location was decided to be probably the best, best for it, just because it is in that corner it gets very little use, but understanding your concerns there as well. And I know that the structure that will be seen is a fenced area about 28 by 30. And it's going to be properly landscaped. There will be, Vexus also is going to take care of the sprinklers, any of the sprinklers that had to be relocated, different things. The other parts of the easement is just a road access. There's really there'll be no structures there. And also 10-foot wide access easement out to a utility pole. So there'll be no construction there as well. So it's really that 28 by 30 fenced area that will be landscaped, that will be visible. And if it's all right with the permission of the committee, I'll invite Mr. Falk to come up and address the non-city sites. Is that all right? Thank you.
Chair, Councilor Cassett, thank you for having me. We are looking forward to starting our project here. And, as Mr. Lees had mentioned, we have looked at four or five different private properties. One down on South Airport Road. One on Bisbee Court, which was on the west side of I-25. And there's another one, on Cerrillos and Camino Carlos Rey, close to the park. I don't want to say abandoned, but it was a car dealership that was there. We looked at that. We, as Mr. Lisa talked about, we talked to the Parks Department, had several meetings out there, try to find the most unobscure area that's not going to impact any activities on the park. We are back behind, what we decided on is back behind where the pine trees are at on the south side of the baseball field where the fence is at, trying to get it away because we definitely don't want to impact anything that's going on with the community and with the park. That's our whole promise to the city of Santa Fe, is be community engaged and not, be something that's going to be an obstruction. So our plans are, as we build this site, we're basically going to lay a concrete pad down, place a prefabrication building that will be sitting right on that pad. And then depending on either from the code perspective, the Parks Department, what kind of fencing that we put in down in Albuquerque, we're building one and we're putting what we call CMU block fencing. It kind of circles it in, I guess you would say. But we will put whatever landscaping, trees, anything out there that will kind of improve the quality of that park, but also kind of obscure and try to hide it as best as we can. It won't be any different than, it's small, it's only 288 square feet, the building is. And it's probably a little bit smaller than if the Parks Department was to build a public bathroom there out of brick walls.
Thank you. And what was wrong with these other locations that you looked at? Why were they not chosen?
So South Airport Road was because, as Mr. Lee had mentioned, we need some places more centralized for the build. The other impact is we get our circuits to the internet, to the outside world from some providers, Lumen, Cogent. Down Siringo Road is the easiest handoff point to meet up with them. So, and plus we're building redundancy into the network. So something centralized is a better option for us. And like you said, it's very dense in that area. We looked at, is there something abandoned? I mean, that we could tear down and, just, place this building. I mean, it's not a huge lot that we need. So, we considered different private locations, but we also considered that maybe this might be an opportunity for us to partner with the city and then pay the city instead of paying a private vendor or a private seller for that.
Thank you for that. And I understand the central location. I assumed that was why we were going around this area, and I understand that often means District 4 because we are the center of the city. And in terms of community engagement, I know there was an ENN and nobody came. You got one email. And did you guys posted the yellow signs?
Yes.
Was this around the same time that we were doing ENNs for Midtown?
Sure what that was.
Gary, I guess that'd be a question for you. Was this around the same time that we were doing ENNs for Midtown?
Yeah.
Because I could see how somebody would see those yellow signs. They know that Midtown's there and maybe they do not know that this is also coming.
Yeah. Madam Chair, Councilor Cassidy, I'm sorry, I'm not sure. I think probably it was, the Midtown was much earlier.
Chair, Councilor Cassett, we posted those signs at the entrance to Siringo Road, or at Siringo Road, the entrance to that south end of the park, and on the corner of Siringo and Camino Carlos Rey. And we also mailed letters to residents that were south of that to meet that area. And then we also, the day before, is hand delivered letters.
Yeah, I think I'm just not convinced that this is the only site and that we need to take up part of the park. I can think of a number of parking lots, and I understand paying the city but honestly, what the city likes is our parks. Our city really loves our parks. Open space is important to the city. And again, in this part of the city, we don't have as much private open space. And so that public open space, and I understand, a bathroom, but that brings community benefit. And I understand that this does as well. But not so much for the utilization of the park. And so I cannot support this. I do think that there were other locations I can think of behind the GCCC, for example. We have some land there. I don't know if that was looked at. There are a number of parking lots that never get filled because we have some pretty interesting parking requirements in this city. And so I do think that there are other opportunities that don't necessarily have to impact Franklin Miles. Thank you.
Councilwoman Villarreal.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This, I guess, Terry, you could answer this. In the past, when we've had these partnerships, we do leasing options and each year it increases. So it's a kind of a regular revenue generating stream. So I'm curious why we decided on a one-time fee. How was it calculated? And why didn't we opt for the lease option?
Madam Chair, Councilor Villarreal, thank you. Initially up front, we did talk about a lease, but I think just because of the long-term nature of the hub, we decided to do the easement.
And how did you calculate the 20,000? How did the 20,000 get calculated?
Say again, I'm sorry.
So we are charging the 20,000 one-time fee, and I'm just curious how it got calculated.
Okay, Madam Chair, Councilor Villarreal, Josh Cannon and Associates was a real estate appraiser, and the easement was appraised by them.
And I wasn't quite sure where the location was on the park. Is it closer to Nava Elementary School? Can you describe where it is exactly?
Yeah, Madam Chair, Councilor Villarreal, it's on Siringo Road, and it's just before Camino Carlos Rey. It'd be to the east of Camino Carlos Rey. There's an entry that turns into the north that goes right past the baseball field on the left.
School.
So it's right next to Nava. Like
There's
there's
a-
a
there's
dirt
a-
road between the park where you park for
There's a picture in your packet.
I didn't see it.
Yeah, just go, it's towards the end. And it'll show you exactly where it is. Sorry to interrupt.
That's
It's
so
on
weird.
page 10 of
I
16.
don't know why it didn't come up, and now I see it. Okay, so
It's right there in the corner. It is right across the street from.
okay. So then Vexus owns that little corner.
Madam Chair, Councilor Villarreal, no, the city maintains ownership of the property. Vexus has the right to use that as an easement, but the underlying fee title still belongs to the city.
Good. Okay. Oh, I thought you were going to say something. So if we made any changes or improvements and we needed to utilize that square, or I don't know exactly how big it's going to be, we have the right to modify it as needed?
Madam Chair, Councilor Villarreal, we don't have the right to modify the easement area. They'll be making, if approved, a substantial investment within that fenced area. And the other areas, the access easement is just that, an access easement. The other area we could not build on. We could plant, do other park like that, do anything we wanted on the 10-foot easement out to the utility pole.
So if it looks like what did you call it? What did you call it, Councilor Cassett? Did it look like I guess I'm trying to visualize the height. Was that something I missed, a picture of what it would look like? Okay.
Well, they said 28 by 30 with landscaping and fencing, because it's a facility you don't want people messing with, I imagine, which is why you have to have the fencing. It's the hub for the whole, it's the brain center for the whole thing, correct?
Madam Chair, that's the property. That would include the fence. The building is only 12 by 24 feet. And 8 feet high.
8 feet high. That's the highest it will go, 8 feet high.
There's no antennas, no satellite dishes, no cell towers or anything like that on.
All right, I'll yield the floor for now. Thank you.
Other questions from the committee? Councilor Rivera.
Mr. Lees, just in hearing this, and I agree with Councilwoman Cassett about our parks and this being right on the corner where everybody drives and comes into the park, having to see this as you're pulling into a place that people just love to be at. Did we look at the site where the handball courts are?
Madam Chair, Councilor Rivera, the area with the handball court, I believe, I don't think we looked at that due to location. And I think that's part of what we're also including in potential sites for affordable housing. We're working, it's in process. We haven't brought forward yet.
Yeah, I think it was looked at for affordable housing before, and that didn't seem to work out too well. So it's clearly a place that the handball court could be used to hide the new building, as well as an area that definitely needs landscaping improvements. So just curious to see if that site, I think this is a good project. I think it's needed, just not too crazy about the site that was chosen. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Other questions from the committee? I just have one which just escaped me. And did you notify the school? Did you reach out to the school and let them know about the ENN and what's planned here?
Madam Chair, we did not reach out to the school. No.
I think that's problematic. Okay, what are the wishes of the committee?
Move to approve.
Is there a second? Motion fails for lack of a second.
Move to deny.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second to deny this item. I think we need a roll call.
Councilor Cassett,
Yes, and I'd like to make a comment on my vote.
Councilor Lindell,
No.
Councilor Rivera,
Yes, I'd also like to comment.
Councilor Villarreal,
Yes.
Councilor Romero Worth.
Yes.
Motion passes 4-1.
And we have two comments. Councilor Cassett.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. Thank you. And as Councilor Rivera said, and as I said before, this is a really important project. I would really like to see some more consideration given to other parts of the district or in kind of the central area. As one of the counselors for the district, I'd be happy to have these conversations. Or, the handball courts are District 2, but I do think that we do need to be looking at some other areas that are going to have less of a direct impact on the community. Thank you.
Councilor Rivera.
I'll just echo what Councilwoman Cassett said. I think it's a very important project, and maybe if we had an option of maybe 2 or 3 sites that we could choose from, that would have been better, I think, than just focusing on just one. And I understand the importance of being centrally located, and hopefully we can find a site that has less impact on especially kids and our parks. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'd just echo all of that. I'm very excited to have you guys here. We had a meeting. I know what you're up to. I support this project 100%, but I do think the site that was chosen is problematic. So I support my colleagues in that, and sorry to not be able to send you forward with what you're looking for, but I guess that's how it rolls sometimes. Councilwoman Villarreal.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just wanted to add, I'm still not clear why when we decide to lease versus a one-time fee. I haven't seen one-time fees in a while. Maybe I'm not thinking of some of the things that we've been looking at, but most of the time it's a lease, especially for telecommunications related projects. Obviously that's it's been more about towers and such, but I'm just curious if staff could give me more, like, as we move forward, maybe in a different location, because I agree this is not the best location. to understand the rationale behind it. Because I'm not completely clear about that. So the next time we come around about this, it'd be helpful to understand that better. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to move on. Item R. Request for approval of amendment to terminate power purchase agreements between the City of Santa Fe and how do you say this? Designo Holdings LLC. We have Regina Wheeler, our Public Works Director, Marcus Martinez, Senior Assistant City Attorney, and I pulled this item. This was pulled from our agenda, I don't know, a month ago, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. I don't know, time's all a blur. And so I just wanted to have you walk us through exactly what's happening here and how the city, I think there might have been, the memo suggests that, there's some things we're going to do differently. I think the industry itself may be changing a bit and how these things happen. So I think it would be helpful to just kind of walk us through this and be really clear about what's going on.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair, members of the committee. I'll start because this project started a long time ago. And in fact, it started when I was here as the solid waste director. I had Shirlene Sitton's job and Mayor Koss was the mayor and Robert Romero was the city manager at the time. So it was a long time. Nick Schiavo probably had something to do with this. So it was the early days of solar. It was actually one of our first sort of distributed solar projects at the city of Santa Fe. I wasn't directly involved, but I got involved because one of the arrays was installed at the transit center through this PPA. So it was one of the early models to help cities be able to get renewable energy while leveraging the 30% federal tax credit. It was only available to private entities. So that's why you do a PPA where you have somebody else own and operate the system. We buy the power because theoretically they can get it cheaper because they have the big tax credit. So, and then we did a number of systems. There was one installed, like I said, at transit. There was one installed at the convention center, one at the compost facility. There was going to be one at the transfer station. That one didn't end up happening. And around that same time, we did a bunch of other PPAs, right? We got the megawatt out at Buckman Direct Diversion Plant. We have a megawatt out at the wastewater treatment plant, all in these PPA power purchase agreement models. And so it was a state of the art. We actually found this one underperforming when we did a review of all the PPAs, just to make sure that the owners of the systems were operating them so that we were getting full benefit, that everything was right. We were getting the recs were going to the right places and all that kind of thing. And we found these two to be underperforming by, 40% underproduction. And when we contacted the vendor, they then indicated that they couldn't perform. And I'll hand the mic over to Senior Assistant City Attorney Martinez because he got involved at that point. And then I will just say this particular agreement had a twist, which isn't always there, but isn't completely uncommon. And that was that the city gave the developer a loan to develop the arrays as well. So it was privately owned, but then financed by the city to the private developer at the time. So that's actually one clause in these agreements, which is a little bit unique about a PPA in this particular case. So that's the background. And from there.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Thank you, Regina, for that useful summary. So the staff basically met with this vendor and tried to figure out why they couldn't perform or basically asked them to perform first, and they said that they couldn't. So the entity that we're talking about tonight is Designo. They purchased they acquired the power purchase agreement rights from Cripple Creek. And it seems to us, after we had spoken to them, that they really weren't in the business of actually managing or knowing a lot about these types of systems, but they were more interested in as an investment at the time. They thought that they could bundle groups of these power purchase agreements and somehow monetize them. But in terms of them maintaining the system or having the expertise to do so, it became clear that they did not have either the wherewithal or the capability to do that. So we recommended terminating the agreements and acquiring all of the rights back that the city could obtain from them that were left over in order to sort of minimize our losses. And so we drafted a very pro-city termination agreement to which they did not really push back very hard on, and made it a condition of termination that they provide all of these rec credits back to the city and turn over all of the infrastructure to the city. And then the city would take it under itself to hire a contractor to maintain and improve the system. And so if we're able to proceed down this path, we, and thanks to some of the math of Regina, believe that this can still be a system that provides benefit to the city despite these setbacks of having underperforming companies who admit that they are incapable of maintaining the system, acquiring back all of the right title and interest to the infrastructure that they installed and the renewable energy credits. And so I'll just leave it there and stand for questions, or you can ask Regina and I questions.
Okay, and so we're minimizing our losses. We're going to gain from this the rec credits, which are still good. And once we get the thing operating at its full potential, we should be able, that will be valuable to the city. And then we get the infrastructure as well. Can you quantify an actual loss in this whole thing to the city? I mean, are we going to come out net gain, net loss? I think you did have in here the kind of the value, the 910,000. Maybe you can speak to that a little bit. And you know, just how the math works out, where it seems like we don't really have a choice in this. We got to make this thing work. And I think it's very helpful to know that this was an early model. We're learning things about how you do this, and we're learning, you know, how to do it better. So just curious if you can kind of fill that in a little bit.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for that opportunity. Yes, in fact, there's quite a bit of benefit to the city of getting these systems back up and running. So whenever you have a solar array that's generating your power, instead of having to buy it from the grid, you're saving 11 cents a kilowatt hour. That's really significant in and of itself. Add to that, since this was back in the old days when the utilities had to pay the RECs, renewable energy certificates, if you remember, the highest they ever paid was 12 cents. These are at 8 cents. That's a really high REC. You're almost doubling your money. So you're avoiding 11 cents per kilowatt hour that you'd pay the utility. Plus add to that, they're going to pay us 8 cents a kilowatt hour on top of that for every kilowatt hour we generate. So there's a lot of high revenue benefit. And so, yes, over the life, and we've got, you know, so they're 10 years old. We're going to replace some key components, which will make sure that these will run for the next 15 years really well. That because at 15 years of warranted life to generate that $910,000, and they'll probably run longer than that. So it's definitely a net positive by far.
How much longer do we have the rec credits? How much, because I know, like, I have a solar system on my house. I think I'm out of rec credits, so I don't know. I know some of these things, either they were used to incentivize people going early to start adopting this infrastructure. Some of them are phasing out. How does that work with these, you know?
2032. Thank you, Karen. Karen Gross just said that they're good until 2032. So we calculated that in 2032. And one of the things just to say, those rec credits are not just incentive, but it also gives the utility the rights to claim the environmental benefits against their portfolio instead of against ours. So actually now we don't buy RECs anymore because we want to claim the environmental benefit of our systems. But in the old days, it was kind of like, let's just figure out how we can make this thing pencil and do it. And so we were selling our RECs, but we don't sell them anymore.
Okay, that's helpful. Other questions from the committee? Councilwoman Villarreal.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Most of my questions were answered. I was just curious, the infrastructure that's already there, we can still utilize. It's still functional. We're just adding components.
That's correct. We're replacing inverters mostly. They are typical fail after 10 years, and the early phase ones need to be replaced. So yes, The systems are up and running. They're making about 40% and we'll just do a big tune up on them.
Okay, that was what I was trying to figure out, how much of a loss we would have on the current infrastructure, but it sounds like we can utilize it, but tweak it.
Yes, Madam Chair. And in fact, in your packet is the cost to repair them. So it's
Right.
$51,000 per array. So we just put the whole thing together here. So as soon as this is approved, we can be off and running to get them repaired and up to speed.
Great. Okay, thank you very much.
Other questions from the committee? I didn't recognize Karen Gross. Sorry about that. Also here, part of the team, and I know a critical part of the whole thing. So thank you. Is there a motion?
Move to approve.
Motion and a second to approve this item. Can we get a roll call, please?
Certainly, Madam Chair, Counselor Cassett,
Yes.
Counselor Lindell. Counselor Lindell. Counselor Rivera,
Yes.
Counselor Villarreal,
Yes.
Counselor Millworth.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, we are done with our consent calendar. Thank you all for being here. Appreciate it. Sorry, we're gone a little late. Action items, we don't have any. Executive session, we don't have one. Matters from staff, we sort of had, but I'll give you another opportunity, Director Oster.
Madam Chair, no additional items from me.
All right, matters from the committee. Everybody got their updated budget schedule and the agenda for those days. Hopefully we've hit the sweet spot. Our next meeting, regular meeting, is Monday, April 17th, but of course we will begin budget hearings on Tuesday next week. And I believe Tuesday we start at what time? 11? No, 1, because, all right, 1, sorry.
Madam Chair, on Tuesday, April 11th, we will start at 1 p.m.
Okay,
Here
budget
at
hearings
Council
in this
chambers.
chamber.
Yes.
There'll be an overview, and I believe we hear from the unions that day. So we'll kick it off then. But our next regular meeting is Monday, April 17th. So we'll be seeing a lot of each other. And